and what the leading practices are. I understand that I have 10 minutes to make this presentation, so we'll just keep it short and sharp so that we get into the panel session. For my presentation, on the next slide, we look at the outline, and basically what we're going to be talking about is the new reality. The new reality basically is just really giving a context to why is this important now, why really should we be talking about e-government at this moment. What's the scope of e-government? A lot of us talk about e-government, but really, what does it mean for different segments of the society? And then we'll be talking about the leading practices. And these leading practices are basically just looking at what a few countries that have been identified as leaders in e-government, what are they doing, what are the potential things we can learn from them, and of course, we'll be closing with what the critical success factors are. So going on to slide 3, what's the new reality? I'm sure over the last 18 months, a lot of us, owing to the COVID pandemic, we've all had to experience life, experience work in a very different way, even from how our children access education, how we access our work, how we access. Talk about what does e-government really mean when you look at it across different segments of the society. So e-government means different things to different segments of the society. On the broad level, it's just saying how do we deliver government services, how do citizens, businesses access information in a more transparent, more digital manner, leveraging technology tools. On the first segment there, you see government to citizen services. And when we talk about government to citizen services, it could be as simple as knowing where the nearest vaccine center to you is. It could be, how do I renew my license? How do I get set up my business? And when you look across all these different needs that citizens, you and I will typically have, the question you then begin to say is that, to what extent is this enabled? To what extent do I need to call somebody up, have a contact within the ministry or within an agency to get things done? When we talk about e-government for the citizen, it's all about transparency, ease of accessing information, ease of even engaging the government. A lot of us today may be frustrated about one thing or the other. Maybe it could be in our local government. What's the way technology enables us to reach our different representatives in government? When it comes to businesses, you want to set up a business, what's the ease of doing business? How easy is it to remit our taxes? How easy is it to pay our licenses and whatever tariffs? All these are things that e-government enables for businesses. And then of course, when we look at employees of the government, things like accessing their payroll information, things like accessing their training programs, things like accessing their annual leave process. All of these are things that e-government can enable. And of course, e-government also plays an important role when it comes to collaboration between government agencies. On the next slide, let's get into the next slide as we say, so what are the leading practices? And there are different dimensions to the leading practices. I've tried to highlight 8 important ones I'm going to be talking about. And what's the rationale for these 8? We did a study of the countries that are, or the benchmark countries when it comes to e-government. And there are different sources, of course, within the European Union. The European Commission does an annual study where they highlight the top performing countries when it comes to e-government. And then we also look at the UN. UN also does an annual study where they also do some sort of benchmarking across different parameters. And for this, I think there were 3 countries that were consistently identified in the top 10 of both the list. Namely Denmark, Estonia, and Finland. And I'm sure a lot of us have heard e-Estonia. E-Estonia, there's no time to talk about e-government that Estonia doesn't come up. And some of the things that we highlighted here are practices that we found to be consistent across the countries that were identified as leaders in e-government. I believe that's the crux of what we are going to be talking about today. So first is around the accelerated modernization of legacy technologies. It's no news today that in a lot of the e-government initiative is very heavy on technology infrastructure. We're talking about data, we're talking about making all services available online. And for that, there has to be a radical shift from on-premise infrastructure, to more shared and integrated infrastructure across different government agencies. So we found that these leading countries have been able to start adopting things like cloud technologies. They've been able to adopt some sort of aggregation of their data centers such that we are not duplicating spend on technology infrastructure across different agencies. There's also the cloud adoption. So while there are sensitivities around data sovereignty, some concerns around going to cloud, we're seeing that increasingly governments across the world are taking that bold step of moving to cloud because, again, people have realized that the security and the maintenance that happens on cloud is almost even, in fact, it will be very difficult for an organization that doesn't have a big IT project to keep up with some of the services that cloud providers provide. The second is around adaptive security. Of course, as you talk about going digital, as you talk about keeping sensitive information about your citizens, about the government's actions and initiatives on public cloud, then the question of security comes into play. On a particular instance, Estonia, who is identified as a leading e-government center, they had a cybersecurity attack, I think sometime around 2005. And while this was dealt a bit of a blow to the country, what it also allowed them to do was to sit and reflect on what sort of security measures do they need to put in place to, first of all, to reinstate public trust in e-government and also to ensure that they did not fall victim to such anymore. And of course, this also included considerations like having their disaster recovery center located in a different country, I believe that's in Luxembourg. And the idea is that should they encounter any cyber attack again, they will just switch to their remote site in Luxembourg and it will be a seamless service for their citizens. Third point there, which is one that is very important, especially when we look at it from the private sector and when we look at it on the need to deliver services, is how do we incorporate experience centricity? For a number of these countries, one of the regulating things for them is having a one-stop shop for their citizens to access all government services. I'm going to talk about Estonia again because in Estonia, it's interesting to note that you are able to do everything digitally. I think there are only three things that you cannot do digitally end-to-end in Estonia. That's getting married, getting divorced, and buying property. Those are the only three things that require physical engagement. And that's not to say you can't start. You can start digitally, but somewhere along the line, you have to be physically present for such. Digital identity programs. A number of countries, and I believe Nigeria as well, have made investments around digital identity. For e-government to thrive, one of the important things is that identity is at the center of it all. Issues of duplicated identity, having some database maintained by the Customs Department, separate from what's maintained for voting, separate from what's maintained for driver's license. One of the things that these countries that are leaders have done very well is centralizing the identity management system. And we're seeing a lot of them adopting blockchain technology to ensure that there is a distributed ledger technology to ensure that the information that is kept there is immutable and that there is a proper process for even making changes that is replicated across all the nodes of the ledger. The fifth point is being agile and responsive. A number of these countries were able to respond very quickly in the time of crisis, and all of this is a function of their digital savviness. Sixth point there is around the workforce. And for the workforce, when it comes to workforce, there are three important things. One is that how do we upskill our existing civil service staff? The second point there is around how do we attract the right digital talent into public service? Because there's no point saying we're embracing digital or e-government and then we don't have the right talent. And of course, the third point there is then saying what sort of what sort of training programs, what sort of enablement programs we put in place for public sector staff to ensure that they continue to future relevant skills. The last point here is around open data. Open data is also one of the areas where a number of these countries have really done well. And this is just basically saying, how do you make data about government actions? How do you make data about citizens? Of course, with their consent, available for collaboration, available for innovation. So a lot of these countries have been able to expose data for their citizens in order to allow their citizens leverage their data assets for different things, also allowing them to collaborate better with the private sector. So these 8 points that I've highlighted are basically some of those key trends that we've seen across these countries. In closing, I'd just like to talk about it. So what do we want to take out of this? What are the critical success factors as Nigeria develops e-government? One is around the strong and visionary leadership. And while, in order to depersonalize this, what the strong vision is basically saying that what do we want to get out of this? I talked earlier about Estonia saying, we want to have a one-stop shop for accessing all government services, or we want every government service to be available digitally. So if we can make such a bold statement, then it's easier to align initiatives, it is easier to align our actions, our investments towards achieving that objective. But it starts from having that strong vision statement. The second point is around sustaining investment in priority areas. Once we've identified the areas where we want e-government to drive, then we have to be able to make bold investments to drive that. Third is the point I mentioned earlier around the digital skills. Having that innovation culture. How do we set up a public service of our ministries and agencies that are actually thinking digital, thinking innovation, enabling that. And of course, the technology. We talked about open data, artificial intelligence, cloud infrastructure. All of these are things that are very critical to enabling e-government. And last but not the least, in the private sector collaboration, because then we can begin to reap the dividend of e-government in Nigeria. Thank you.
I can hear myself, but Engineer and Jerry has brought me here this afternoon. Thank you again. I was telling the media that it's the 3rd e-government symposium, so I hope I'm right. Thank you, moderator. And to my panelists, to the media that's here, good afternoon to you all. I'm here to add another perspective to the theme, and the thematic is big tech companies and multinational organizations, international best practices in e-government. So I have 10 minutes. I don't think I'll need 10 minutes, but I have 10 minutes because what I have to say is around some of the best practices that A4AI has observed, and this is what I want to share with you. So just bear with me a moment, because really the thematic speaks to it, and I think some of the best practices that are around, my colleague from KPMG alluded to Estonia. They are one of the leading examples of e-government's implementation. There are 2 others. They're not the best, but they are very similar to, I believe, the Nigerian government structure. So it's really around the whole of government and public-private partnerships. I think the emphasis here is on public-private partnerships. It's not that Nigeria hasn't done these things, but I think the emphasis on definitely an approach to the best practices of e-government is around PPP models. While the initial e-government initiatives were aimed at automating public sector processes and streamlining services within and across government organizations, the focus has increasingly shifted to the provision of seamless information flows and the facilitation of collaborative decision-making. And this has resulted in a conceptual shift towards the view of e-government as a means to enable whole of government service delivery, policy integration, and increased transparency, and of course accountability through the use of open government data and participatory service delivery, and of course, decision making. And I think that's universal as claimed by the United Nations. So e-government requires a whole of government strategy. I think that has been re-emphasized to make it effective, which in turn demands an enormous amount of planning, commitment across government layers, energy and vision. It therefore takes time to achieve, and examining isolated e-government solutions may be too limited or too early, because the context of e-government needs to be considered. So a holistic approach to tackling e-government requires accompanying measures that address institutional weaknesses, legal and regulatory reforms, as well as the crucial issues of connectivity and coverage, as being highlighted previously by a certain number of panels before us. These aspects can be as critical as the e-tools themselves. The so-called digital divide means that access to ICT still varies greatly within many countries and occurs more frequently in developing and transition countries. This may result in involuntary creation of inequalities, both in terms of access to public services and market for individuals as well as businesses. Therefore, is that they may increase both for the public and private sectors in the short and medium term. Whole of government approaches requires the capacity to integrate consultative processes, not only with citizens, but also with the private sector. And I think this forum, sectors like the military, law enforcement, even power and energy, delivery of e-government, but also an essential source of information to ensure that the design and delivery of e-government is responsive to the private sector is still underdeveloped. So fostering dialogue at all stages of e-government development with the private sector, its maturity and implementation stages should be included as part of countries' corruption risk assessments. Such assessments should be routinely carried out with respect to business processes, as well as the context of due diligence related to business partners, joint ventures and mergers and acquisitions. Despite the potential of e-government for positive citizen interactions, many governments at the local level do not effectively exploit the technology. Recent studies have shown that government websites are placing less emphasis on using their platforms to engage citizens and stakeholders. I think that's of note. Relevant. Global e-governance providing opportunities for citizen engagement and participation online. Globalization and worldwide best practices in e-government. Example of best practices such as the Government Technology Agency, which is GovTech, playing a vital role in e-government development in Singapore. Services developed by GovTech provide useful examples and best practices in e-government usability, not only for citizens but also for businesses and government agencies. For citizens, a combination of digital products has made digital government convenient and easy to use. E-Citizens, for example, is a one-stop portal of all Singapore's government's e-services. Therefore, users do not need to know which agencies are responsible for what kind of public services that are being rendered. Single Pass, Singapore's personal access, enables users to get access to hundreds of digital services provided by more than 60 government agencies. MyInfo, for instance, allows users to pull personal data across government agencies to fill out digital forms. It saves time for citizens in the verification process of online transactions. For business users, CallPass provides businesses a digital identity that can easily make transactions with government. Business Grant Portal brings government grants for businesses into one place, whole online compared with traditional means. All of these online products make e-government a much more convenient option for different user groups. The e-government process in Singapore also provides outstanding examples for citizen engagement. And I could go on and on and on. But I'll just move on to another example where they launched something in 2017 called One Services, and it's an upgraded version of the 311 platform in the US. So the US has obviously adopted e-government into their way of engaging with citizens, and Singapore has done one better than what they're doing. They use it for illegal parking, littering, and building maintenance. I think that's sort of the Lagos smart city approach. But also supports citizens in event management and community gathering. Another interesting example is Beepline, a smart mobility platform that provides data-driven shuttle bus services for commuters. Citizens are empowered to suggest and vote for private express bus routes that cater for their travel needs. Another example, just for time, demonstrated a collaborative PPP approach with multinational corporations, and it transitioned into smart cities. And obviously they relied on big tech in AI, artificial intelligence, big data, Wi-Fi hotspots as well, deployed for public access. So really, Wi-Fi hotspots for public good and not for commercial reasons. And other connectivity solutions alongside digital literacy, training, and basic digital skills development. It is apparent that Nigeria's e-government initiatives and implementations is multi-pronged and variable across different states, and with benchmarking progress can be ascertained, and any gaps that are found by government at state level or by the FCT, private sector actors should be brought in as subject matter experts to assist. This will of course take time and require the requisite political will. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for listening.
10 minutes slot. And I think you had a lot of recurring themes there, particularly the need to enhance and develop digital skills, because you cannot have e-government if you don't have a skilled workforce, if you don't have a population who have access, if you don't have connectivity across the length and breadth of the country. And then, of course, an interesting slide with Teniola about the involvement of the tech and big business through a PPP arrangement and the use of systematic experts to guide government. Interesting thing there, I think you've raised it about the private sector and public sector approach. And I think it needs to involve both of them to develop the relevant processes properly. Well, thank you to our two program presenters there, Mr. Asuni, thank you, Mr. Taylor, thank you. At this stage, I'd like to invite our two panelists to talk really to the issues highlighted in the various papers, but generally along the topic of big tech companies and multinational organizations, international best practices in e-government. So let me start. I think somebody I think COVID-19 has exacerbated the use of digital technologies, and it actually shows that the digital economy is upon us now. An example of that this summit is actually a hybrid. While there are a few of us gathered here, the Sheraton Hotel in Lagos, we have other participants and stakeholders who are actually participating virtually online. This is the way of the future. Bearing that in mind, could I invite Mr. Fagani Tambeayuk, who is the Africa Public Policy Manager for Connectivity Issues at Facebook.
From our perspective, e-government a key component of e-government relates to how government communicates with the citizens. Government, whichever government department it is, has an important role to play. especially ensuring that their citizens are well protected, are informed, and feel taken care of. Their governments, they expect to get the information, they expect to know that their governments care about them. And the good thing about Facebook as a multinational company is that we've developed tools that enable government to communicate effectively with their citizens. So over so many countries, we have several countries leveraging these tools to have effective communications with their citizens. We have empowered governments to connect with communities that previously did not have any engagement with government, raise awareness about important issues, encourage healthy behaviors in their communities, even encourage people to register for services or for their civic duty. Like for instance, the Nigerian government will leverage some of these tech platforms that have been developed by multinationals to encourage people to register for the upcoming elections. So these are some of the ways that people or governments are leveraging our tools to really provide effective e-government services. When a citizen feels empowered, when a citizen feels closer to his government, where if they have an issue, they have a channel, a very easy channel to use to relay those issues and get almost immediate feedback in real time. That citizen feels empowered, that citizen feels that the government really looks after them, and they will continue to invest and partner with the government to ensure that the country moves forward. So these are some of the trends that we're observing. COVID-19 is a good example where we saw governments across the world leverage the Facebook platform, WhatsApp chatbots to ensure that their citizens were empowered about COVID, had the information to stay safe, and even run vaccination campaigns and information updates on the status of COVID in different geographies. So that's just the additional context I want to share based on the experiences we've seen over the past 18 months, where more and more governments across the world, including in Africa, are leveraging some of these digital tools that to ensure that they communicate effectively with their citizens and help deliver proper e-government services. So I'll stop there. I know it's been a messy contribution due to the connectivity issues, but hopefully you get the gist of the point I was trying to make. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please do give Mr. Fabian Tomba, you can never round of applause. For his contributions. I think the big message from him there is that it's important for government to interact.
Mentioned, I think my discussion is going to be touching a bit more on a focus on citizens' engagement and what exactly we need to do from the perspective of e-government. So I'll just be talking briefly on the global state of e-governance as it is today in terms of where we are. And if you look at this graph that I have here, it shows you the groups. It's an index. It's called the E-Governance Development Index, which is showing clearly how the whole world is, faring as regards e-governance. You can see, looking at the details in the legend, you see that Africa is growing at an astronomical rate. We have over 15 countries in this mix that already have attained some type of high-level e-governance development index. The highest e-government development index can be seen from Europe, and followed by Asia and the Americas, and Africa is following smartly. And for you to know, Nigeria is part of one of those countries that is topping along. But this means a lot. It means that Africa is ready, Nigeria is ready. A lot of countries in Nigeria and in Africa are ready to really grow what we call the improved e-governance development process. And I'll share with you the stage of e-governance quickly. We already know the first stage is having an online presence where you have all your information and all that going on. And there's a very crucial stage, which is the interaction, the citizen engagement. And after that, it's a mixture of transactions, and transformation takes you into where you can begin to, multiply your influence with what you've already created in terms of analytics, in terms of helping you to, forecast behavior of the citizens and the rest of that. But what is crucial is that when we are, really trying to struggle at is the interaction and the citizens' engagement bit of it. If we fail there, we will not be able to scale. So, the expectations of the Nigerian citizens are very simple. The same Nigerian citizens that the e-government programs are planning to engage are already mature enough to engage with the government, because these are the same people that are customers of our fledgling economy. These are the same guys that are doing a lot of things when it comes to fintech, banking. They are really engaging. I can tell you for free that the traffic that goes out every day in Nigeria is in the billions of SMS messages every day. That means the citizens are doing a lot of digital services, but how come the e-governance part of it is not enjoying this? And I'll show you in a couple of slides to come. So these factors here are showing you that Nigerians are ready. We have 51% of Nigerians already on the internet. We have 80% of Nigerians and 85% of Nigerians yearning for quality of service. They understand what it is to have good service. We are talking about people that already want some type of personalized experience happening. There's a profile of this type of customers, and this is how I describe it. I said, while we are busy trying to do financial inclusion, we might be forsaking the real core of our e-governance strategy, which is the people that are ready to move, into this, bucket to help us, grow it and grow it up. So we need to focus back on the customer and understand what this citizen is all about. The citizen, which is a customer to some organization, should be treated like a customer as well from the government side. So these are just examples of how the behavior of the digital citizen is. And when we look at it from the global practice perspective, you will be talking about things like one platform, ability to reach all channels, ability to go deeper into engaging and exchanging interactions with your citizens. And if we take a cue from the private sector, right, you'll see what has occurred using the case study of e-commerce, the financial institutions, fintechs. They have been able to dominate the entire channels that the citizen or their customers reside. So their digital self resides under via SMS, via emails, all sorts of chat applications, including WhatsApp, Facebook, like my last colleague mentioned. But it's all sorts of channels. We as the e-government practitioners need to now understand that we need to take a cue from the private sector and begin to engage. The interaction is what creates the transaction, if you get what I mean. And taking the cue from the public sector and the private sector, you can see that the private sector has grown astronomically in terms of the engagement they have with their customers. So the banks today will meet the customers at different points and show them, their journey as they are making a transaction, or before they make a transaction, or after they make a transaction. There's always an interaction from those organizations to the citizens. So these are the 5 watchwords: engage with citizens, expand the citizens' reach and engagement, begin to automate your customer service so that you can be available more. So a lot of the government prosecutors, a lot of e-government products and projects do not even have some type of FAQ modality. They don't have a 24/7 type of customer service type of engagement or channel. These are the things that we need to really look in deeper, because when you win the customer, the citizen who is customer as well, you begin to move ahead in your transformation bid as regards e-government. And take a look at this case study that we had with the Jordan government, the Kingdom of Jordan. We were able to create some value by bringing together 46 different government institutions, from tax to innovation to all that, and provide services for them through our partners WhatsApp, over 700 type of services. ranging from downloading forms and filling the forms online, making payments, getting locations of different health centers and things like that. These are the things that we're looking at, or in terms of building that e-governance engagement. So again, you look at the aspects of the type of use that we can prefer. You look at the public relations. How can you use e-governance and the channels and this citizen engagement discussion to promote that? Immigration, health, education. There are so many things that that are waiting for us to start exploring, so that we can provide some more greatness for our e-government channels. So I will not go too far. So because I have only 5 minutes, I'm going to stop right here. But I hope we're able to get a perspective from where I'm coming from. Yes, there's a lot of work to be done, because if you look at it, there's so many things that we still need to put in line in terms of existing data. How do we use the data? How do we bring it together? How do we converge it and things like that? Those are the kind of things that we should be talking about now as we speak. So that's all from my side. Little discourse that I wanted to have around citizens engagement. Thank you very much.
Looking in Jordan. So thank you very much, Ajayi, for that. And whatever time is well spent, we're happy to begin to round up. So let me quickly move on to Mr. Ruben Olusola. Ruben is the Regional Director, West Africa, for Avanti Satellite Communications. Ruben, thank you for your patience. You've got 5 minutes now to talk to the topic. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Give me a round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Finally, I've got a chance to speak. Finally. So, for me, we've said a lot today. I've heard a lot of my colleagues talk about e-government, use cases, case studies. We've got loads of them. So if I add to that, if I start to add to that now, I'm not sure we'll be there today. So I want to take you on a slightly different journey. Something we can all relate to. How are we going to measure the success of this e-government? How do we measure it? The success of any service or any technology deployed is the uptake of its services. Now I'm going somewhere. Even with all these e-government services, how many people in Nigeria today will be able to access them? Even if we have all these very snazzy and very nice applications and portals. Now, there is a lot of people today in this country that are not connected. And that's where Avanti comes in. We're a satellite provider and we provide satellite solutions. And we know this because we've been working with mobile operators and towercos and even the government in this country and other countries to provide or to take communications to those people that need them as well. People that have never even had access to any internet connectivity at all. They are citizens of this country as well, and they need to be connected. So if we cannot get it to them, if only 10% are able to consume the services that are being provided by the solutions that we have, then I cannot say that it's successful. So we need to work on that. That's what I think we need to work on, to make sure the little boy in a little village in Maiduguri, or the little girl in somewhere in Benue, small village, have the same opportunity as the people in Lagos, in Lekki, in Ikoyi, to be able to have the same opportunity to connect as well. If we can do that, if we can achieve a lot of that, then we can now start talking about, okay, we're starting to get traction and we're successful with e-government. So my message today and my point is that the more people we can get connected, the better it will be for us and the better we'll be able to consume the services. Now, let me now get to how the government will benefit as well. Since we're talking about the government, it's about e-government today. If you can connect those people, then you can get a lot of them, you can create jobs for them, then they can pay taxes, they can earn income, and they can actually start to contribute to the economy of the country as well. So, just in summary, we need more people to be connected, otherwise we cannot say we're successful with e-government no matter the solution that we provide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Olusola, for that. I think he brought in very interesting perspective. What does good look like? How will we know when we have successfully transformed to e-government? And then, of course, it's raised the big issue. How do you remove the digital divide? Can you really be in an e-transformed environment when you still have pockets of people who do not have connectivity? Thank you very much. Give him another round of applause. Okay. Now, somebody raised the proverb earlier, the Yoruba proverb. It says that the big masquerade is brought out to dance last. What that means is you save your best until last. Now, this morning, we had a very, very excellent paper presented by Mr. Hong-Eng, his chief global scientist of Huawei. He came in from Singapore, and I'm sure if you follow closely, at least two of the speakers here have referenced Singapore as a case study for e-government. Well, here, Mr. Hong-Eng had to rush off. He had a meeting with the governor, and he promised to come back. And true to his word, he's come back, and he's joined this panel. So thank you very much, Mr. Hong-Eng. We now give you, well, I think within 5 minutes, and I know you will keep the time, keep your script, but I think it's important that we will learn from you. You help us consolidate on this topic. So let me hand over to you.
Thank you, moderator. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for having to rush off this morning, but I think I already spent a lot of time this morning talking, so probably I won't delve into too much detail. But I think my distinguished panelists, you have covered many key issues that I mentioned. And if I look at not just the Singapore experience, if you look around e-government successes around the world, very often it's not the technology. It's not the technology. The first panelist, I think one of you spoke about Finland. Not Finland, sorry, it's Estonia. And Estonia, if you know the history why they moved into Estonian e-government, a lot is due to the cyber attack. There was a major cyber attack. It became a national sovereignty issue. And the country decided they have to be self-sufficient, Estonia is like Singapore, a small little country. So they want to use the power of digital, of data to transform themselves. And they have done it very successfully. In fact, one of the successful e-government programs they did was to literally leverage on the electronic identity. Just as Singapore, we have done SingPass. I'm using SingPass, which is a federated identity. It's used not only for e-government services, but also for the private sector. What Estonia has done very amazingly is the e-residency program. You can Google search Estonian e-residency program. What they achieve is that since they have created this identity platform, they allow foreigners to register as an electronic resident without having to step foot into Estonia. So once you register as an electronic resident, you will get an ID, and once with the ID, you can open a bank account, you can open a company and do business with people there. So basically now there are many electronic residents of Estonia that don't need to go there, right? And it has actually contributed a large chunk of the economy of Estonia. Now this is the power. I know Nigeria is already a huge country by Singapore standard, right? But at the end of the day, small countries are using data, whether it's Singapore or Estonia, to transform ourselves to be competitive against the big country, right? Now, whether it's Estonia, Singapore, or many countries, a success factor lies with the people. If a country requires a foreign company to come and build the e-government program for you, I don't think it will last. It has to be your own people. Singapore 20 years ago, thank you. The e-government program that this morning I shared with you, the platform that we R&D, we design and build, even way before service-oriented architecture software was available, was precisely because of that. A few companies got together to collaborate with the university in Singapore to set up a competency center. Through this competency center, they developed a few companies that ultimately led to the design for the whole e-government program. It's all about people. So this is why, for Huawei perspective, if you know us, we are very much into ICT, but we believe truly, especially in the government business or smart city business, the application must come local. This is why when I read the digital economy agenda of your country last year, I think you have 8 pillars. You have 8 pillars. One of the pillars is develop local contents and talent. That is crucial. Even Lagos State, I just went to meet the governor. He has the agenda called THEMES, T-H-E-M-E-S, right? T-H-E-M-E-S. And the E, second E, education and technology, is to develop again local talents and this incubation. This is important. And I think Huawei, we have been here in Nigeria for 21 years. 21 years. Under the Seeds of the Future program, we have developed actually 21,000 engineers from this country. And last year, just like last year, we have a global ICT competition. It involves students from around the world. Last year, we had 150,000 students competed. The champion team came from students from 3 Nigerian universities. Now, some of you may wonder, why is this not publicized? I'm a Singaporean. After that, I worked for a US company for 16 years. I worked for Huawei for coming to 6 years. It's all in the culture. The Asian company, unfortunately, we tend to stay more low profile. Not like the American company that I work with, we are a lot more into marketing. So Asian culture is like that. So this is why it's different. And this is why I think it's important for any big company as part of this panelist agenda. It's our responsibility not to go to a country to wipe out the resources, to earn all the money. It's important we come here to collaborate. And this is why as a company, we don't want to build our own application. And it's also because no two governments are alike, trust me. Government is never an industry. Banking is an industry. Banking is an industry maybe with 4 or 5 major banks, they compete against each other. They need similar things, they need similar software. But in government, it is not an industry. In the government, everyone is a specialist, they have different functions. They don't compete against each other in terms of the services they provide, but they compete against each other in the budget allocation. This is why the government application have to be homegrown. And I think it's the responsibility of all the big ICT companies to actually build the conduit, the platform, but the actual talents must come locally. And if you look at a recent survey, I think it was last year or the year before, they surveyed the children in USA, what do you want to be? The latest survey, most of them want to be a star on social media. In China, most of the students want to be scientists or astronauts. US used to be like this, but somehow along the way, something, don't know what happened, everybody wants to be a fan on social media. And I know Nigerian youth love social media. Of course, you cannot use Twitter now because it's banned. But my fear is that I do hope while you are playing with social media, you are also serious into programming, application, all these things. Transformation of e-government, this morning I said, you must, number one, treat your people as customers. Many governments don't recognize this fact. Your citizens, the enterprises, the foreigners you are serving, they are your customer. Over my 30 years career, I have met some arrogant people, not here, this is my first time here. They say, no, they are not my customer, because there's no competition. Excuse me, sir, you are wrong. Because if you don't provide good services to them, they can choose to migrate to another city or another country. And those people who can choose to migrate are those that actually you want to keep. Right? So number one, to make e-government successful, please treat them as your customer. Second, convert the unwilling customer to willing, like what I said this morning. And of course, to achieve that, like what I said earlier, your local talent is very important. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Cole. Thank you very much for that, and thank you for recapping that. And I think you've really hit the message there, which is treat your people as your customers. Customer service. And the first rule of customer service is the customer is always right. Government should be about service. I think you have the message there. Even those who are skeptical about government, you have to convert them. So government needs to spend more time in getting people right, providing the interface, let people interact and feel that the government belongs to them, and that the government know that they are the government of. I think that's a very critical message there. I think we also touched on one key thing, which I know that federal government is doing something about now, which is development of your local talent, development of your local indigenous content. And I'm happy to see that. Thank you for raising that issue. The President of the Federal Republic, I think just about 3 months ago, actually launched the national policy for development of indigenous content in the telecoms industry. So I think we begin to recognize that. And again, thank you to Huawei for all your efforts at developing our talent. Thank you very much. I think we've come to the end of the panel discussion. I don't know if I can take maybe one question from the floor. Okay, one question, and the gentleman there with the first case, his hand up, so I'll take that question. Please tell us who you are.
My name is Kola Okmola. I'm the Director, Intelligence, Strategic Data Mining and Intelligence and Analysis for the Federal Inland Revenue Service. I was very delighted to hear Mr. Hong-Eng. I hope I got the pronunciation. For the emphasis on local content and human capital development. We need to place greater emphasis on human capacity development in Nigeria. And one of the ways that we could do this is, hello? Yes, one of the ways that we could do this is to make technology cool again. Now, everybody's watching Big Brother Nigeria. Almost everybody knows what is going on. But when there are technological competitions going on, nobody knows. It's not given as much audience as the, what you call it, entertainment. So we need to come up with ways to make technology interesting, and we also need to come up with the rewarding system. We need to improve the reward system. You mentioned that you hope that it's not only social media. As consumers, we need to become technology producers, not consumers. And how can we do that? We have to encourage and reward learning, knowledge, learning how to code, how to program, how to develop products, how to come up with new creative ideas. Thank you very much.
Agriculture, how do
you tax agriculture?
Yes.
No, I think I want to go back to that point. Because since you are from FIRS, inland revenue responsibility is not just to collect revenue for the country. It is also to balance the economy of a country. So for example, you probably want to tax more on social media than software development. For example, if a company brings in a foreign software company, the tax should be higher than a local developed software.
Yeah.
It's just basic. I think it's just basic. It's important. So I think taxation, whether it's agriculture or anything, you have to look at the overall economy of the country, where you want to hit, where you want to invest. I think that is important.